The Two Tigers. Once upon a time there was a young man who lived in China. Every day he went out to work in the rice fields so that he could earn enough money to support his family. One day when the sun was just peeping over the horizon, its golden yellow glow bathing the valley in soft light, the young man set off. He wore thin cotton clothing and a grass hat on his head called a conical. There was a cold nip in the air as the sun had not yet warmed the earth, and the man pulled his thin woolen coat tightly around him. He walked for a while before cutting off the path and heading towards the green watery rice fields. People were there already working the fields, their backs bent to reach the rice plants. The man sighed as he placed his lunch of dry bread and milk under a tree and began to work. Hours later, just as the sun was setting, the young man straightened up. His back was in agony from bending down for hours at a time. He stretched, moaning at the pain, and looked around. Most people had left, and the valley was filled with dark shadows and dancing bits of light from fires on the hills. Suddenly he heard a soft rustling in the grasses behind him. His heart thumping, he turned slowly and looked into the shadows. 2 yellow-green eyes looked back at him, and a soft growl escaped the black lips and exposed huge yellow teeth. It was a tiger. The young man stood frozen in shock and terror. Then the great beast's tail twitched, its body tensed, ready to pounce. Before the man knew it, he was running, his feet pounding the soft, watery ground. He could feel the tiger getting closer and closer, its hot breath on the back of his neck, its mouth open, ready to devour him. He was falling. It was so unexpected the young man stopped being afraid for a moment before the adrenaline set in and he began to realize what was happening. He floundered about as the air rushed past him and just managed to catch hold of a root sticking out of the side of the cliff. The young man hung there, too afraid to look up or down, his breath coming in short, uneven gasps. After what could have been a second, a month, or a year, he opened his eyes and looked around. The cliff he had fallen off was almost vertical, with few handholds and slippery rocks. He had fallen about 1/3 of the way down, and it didn't look like there would be any hope of climbing down safely. There was something at the bottom of the cliff. The young man blinked his eyes to get the sand and grit out, before squinting at the ground far below. There, sitting at the bottom of the cliff, was a second tiger, its yellow eyes glinting up at him, its tail twitching menacingly. He hurriedly looked away. When he looked up, he got another shock. Sitting on a ledge a few meters above him was the first tiger, its yellow eyes looking down on him, its mouth open to expose its teeth in a horrible grin. The man closed his eyes. This was surely the end. But then he noticed to the left of him, no more than 1 meter away, was a luscious strawberry bush with beautiful green leaves, and hanging there in plain sight was the biggest strawberry he had ever seen. It was ruby red, fat, and full of goodness. There and then the man made a decision. He began swinging backwards and forwards on the root he was hanging from, back and forth, back and forth. Suddenly there was a cracking sound, and the root began to come free. The young man cried out as he fell towards the strawberry.
What happened next?